Good morning. All right, back to VS Code and our to-do list. So a few places left to update before we can wrap up this Redux adventure and move on to other things that need to happen in this app, which is kind of strange to think about, considering uh, the amount of time, the number of streams anyway, spent working on this to be doing something else. But we'll get there pretty soon. Before we get to these things, though, there was something I was noticing when I was looking at our storybook. Actually, I was looking at the pull request where I'm keeping track of all this work and noticing that the UI tests are failing. And I was like, what's going on with that? And so at the end of the last stream, this empty data uh, variant storybook thingy story, I guess is the right word. The interaction test on it is failing, which is not too surprising because the purpose of this test is to test what does it look like when there's no information. And it looks like the interaction test is out of date. So I want to fix that first before we move on to new things. So at first I have to remember where that is. So I think I now have all of the... So this is under the organisms, consumption. So components, organisms, consumption. It's the phrasing, the terminology here is kind of amusing because I'm mixing... Obviously, we're talking about these different components that are part of a calorie tracking food diary application. And then the component structure is laid out around this idea of atoms and molecules and organisms, templates and pages that are like larger and larger building blocks. So you have things that kind of are the intersection of those two kinds of terminology, where we have this organism component or consumption component that is in the organisms folder. And for a second, it feels like maybe we're doing some kind of, I don't know, some kind of simulation thing or some kind of game or something. I don't know. Okay, so how can we fix? So I think the issue here is that we have this base story, and then our other ones we are simply reusing the settings of the ad story. And so, but the ad story has this set of this play for interaction tests, and so this needs to be replaced somehow. And we did that in edit, and I guess we just failed to do something similar for this empty data one. And in fact, really, could we just go off of edit instead? Why do we need... Can we just do that? Is this going to refresh, or is this going to make us refresh? Let's just try oh, I think it was about to do it. All right. So that's just a very basic test that's in the edit story that checks to see that the done button exists. I guess we could also check that the cancel one exists as well. Let's come back to that one the next time we're working on this component again. All right, so fix consumption, empty data story, interaction test. All right, I'll push that up. Okay, so back to the to-do list. So there were a bunch of things we identified that we're still using the old store code. So in this store folder, we have a mixture of old and new. So we have in index.ts, I think we have a bunch of stuff that uses Redux. But there's all these other files like create and bus and actions that have nothing to do with Redux. They're the old RxJS custom thing that I made that I've decided I don't want to keep for reasons that I've gone into before. So what we did last time towards the end of the stream was just some quick searching through the code base to find places that were using those old files, like hooks provided by them and those sorts of things. And this was a thing we had. This was a list of places we found, either just the name of the component or the path. So let's start with the first one. So what does the background request snack bar do? So I think the idea here is that we are getting from our state, are we loading something or was there an error? And then displaying that information. And so then in layout.tsx, which is pretty near our top level, this is where we have our existing store, our legacy store, I guess. I think the somewhere there exists the place where we're setting up the Redux store, and it must be above this. So that is probably in where? Oh, I didn't want to actually click on that. I just wanted to hide the nested things. Is it in pages? App.tsx. Here we go. So here's the provider. So, and you can see here's the layout component that we're using inside of it. So eventually, did I include layout? I did. Good. So eventually we'll be removing this store context provider from this layout. But we're not quite there yet. So how are we going to do this is a question, right? So the inner component here is just a pure component, right? So it's just taking some props and it's displaying some information using the MUI snack bar component. And it's this wrapper, this connected component that is currently using useStore and useObservable from our old state solution, and then we want to update it to use Redux. But where are we going to get this information from? Because the idea here is that the old mechanism would have this errors list and is loading Boolean that would be updated based on whatever requests that were currently outstanding. Is there a way for us to get that information across any possible requests that we're doing? Let's see. So if we go back to store and we go to slices, so we have various places where we have like error and loading and saving in our state in the different slices. But if we want like a global piece of information, how would we get that? I mean, I could imagine that we could create a selector that pulls, like you would just have to know about all the slices and it would peek into each of them. I wonder if there's a more idiomatic way of doing this with Redux, Redux Toolkit. Let's Let's see, how would I search for that? Maybe loading status. Common loading state reducer with Redux Toolkit is something posted on a Stack Overflow. You could have a shared reducer matcher function. That's interesting. So here you have a slice, and you put in extra reducers. You use builder.add-matcher, handle loading and handle error. Or something similar. Is there... I mean, most of our like network loading stuff looks very similar because we're using async thunk. Huh. Is there a way to match on any like pending or fulfilled or rejected? This gives me something else to search for, though. So, Redux Toolkit. Hey, Dota2. How's it going? Oh, thanks for the follow. And that gets us to our first goal of 10 followers, so really appreciate that. Yes. It's exciting. Now I gotta pick a new goal. Let's see. Redux Toolkit shared reducer matcher function. Shared reducer matcher for thunk. With logging? What kind of logging? Oh, this is promising. Oh, like when the endpoint is doing status codes, that sort of thing? Okay. Makes sense. Yeah, not an audit trail. Yeah, that's a bit different. Yeah, it's I mean, there's all sorts of kinds of logging at like different levels too, right? So like you're talking about like, oh, just like logging, you go it goes all the way from like a console log to, some kind of sophisticated like this user performed this action in this context sort of audit trail stuff. Like with anything, there's always nuance and get the valid stuff to log. Step 2, use some program tech. Yep. It's not something we really tackled too much in this because I haven't even deployed this app to the internet yet. I'm going to at some point. I had like a hit list of things, but then I've gotten kind of distracted by this Redux conversion project. Basically, I wanted to do everything that was in this up next column on this project. Yeah, DevOpsy, right? Yeah, that'll be the next thing, right? Once I like, I'm gonna add like terms of service and all. I got to do all that kind of legal stuff too before I put it out on the internet. But then I'll have to figure out like where am I gonna host this and do more of the DevOps side of things. But as you can see right now, one thing at a time. So these create async thunk specific matchers. Did I open one of these? Is pending. What does that look like? Returns a type word function that may be used to check whether an action is a pending action. Okay. Interesting. But can I use that? Oh, I see. Is pending, and then you give it the different things you care about. What if I wanted to say from any thunk, is this pending? Also, what is so the example I found on Stack Overflow? Oh, this is a different one. This is the one I originally found. Builder to add matcher, and then you give it a. Oh, I see what they're doing. So they're just inspecting the action type. Let's try something maybe. So first of all, sure. Can we? Yeah. So we're in the settings right now, and we're fetching settings. So what does this action type look like? All right. It helps if I have the app open. Should make the login transition thing here to go to Discord nicer at some point. So settings. So we have settings /fetch/fulfilled. So I think maybe we could do something very similar to what this answer in Stack Overflow has, where we just look at the ends with. I might come back to Bitus later, but at least for now, I think that will work. So we can add a new slice called call it requests, and then I'll do the typical thing of just put these side by side so I remember how this should be structured. I don't probably need some of those things. Yeah, that's a good attempt, Copilot, but let's see. So we want to interface requests state, correct. Is there an error? Are we loading? Do I want loading to be... I mean, what I'm using in the snack bar is, it's just a Boolean, right? Is loading. Of course, also... Let's just reproduce the same structure for now, and then we'll export const request slice. Sure. And initial state is we're not loading. There are no errors. I don't think we need reducers here. We do need extra reducers. Now is Copilot going to come up with, hey, I didn't need to think about any of this at all. It just wrote it. So is that even right, though? Missing reducers. So we actually have to have... There we go. Yeah, it's all right. You're totally wrong. No. just missing one of the keys that's required for this object. Even though there's nothing in the reducers, there are no reducers for this because we're just using this extra reducers thing to use the builder to match actions. And I guess this works. So what is this saying? This is saying if the action ends with pending, then we are loading. Then go builder pattern. Yes. If it's fulfilled, so if the thunk, then the promise produced by the thunk is then resolved, then we are fulfilled, and then we're not loading anymore. I think this is going to be problematic because what if there are multiple like concurrent requests, and then one that gets resolved, then we're not loading anymore, right? We might need like a stack to do that. Yeah. Okay, but before we get there, we need a selector. Or two. This is not how I usually do this. Normally I do that, right? Normally I guess it maybe doesn't matter, but normally I select the slicing question in this first function, and then I don't know why. Yeah. Full disclosure for those that are aren't aware of this, maybe haven't seen the previous videos, but I am new to using Redux Toolkit, and I've not really done any kind of low level from a I guess it's all about perspective, right? But I've not really done a lot of Redux stuff in quite a long time. Yeah, very heavyweight. Yeah, I mean, you have things like this that are maybe a little overwrought. But I think, I don't know, for right now it feels like future-proofing, maybe. I may change, boilerplate. I may change my mind later. Mainly I wanted to just try doing it this way. That was kind of taking the opposite approach is how I ended up in the situation I was with that custom store with RxJS. Use context. Yeah. Just putting state in the context like that. Yeah, that could be an option. The big use case that the reason I'm doing it this way, why I'm changing anything at all, is because I feel like I have in my head, and I found some libraries to support doing this thing that I have in my head, which is to do like an offline capability for this app, where we're going to have more application state in the store, and then have it be able to like queue up actions so that when you go back online, it resyncs it with the server. Now, whether that's like we implement that in Redux or that becomes decoupled with some kind of like client-side database solution. I was looking at like, I forget the name of the, I've been looking at a few different things, but we'll see. Mainly, one of the great things about this, like being a personal project for me, is I can just try things. If it doesn't work out, I've spent, some time on it, but it's an opportunity to try out things that I don't normally get to try out otherwise. So I'm going to come back to requests, because this is probably going to have to change. But before I do that, I want to update our background request snack bar to use Redux. So we want to get rid of this. And then I need to remember actually how to do this again. Do we have an example here? Yeah. No. Just use selector, isn't it? Yeah, just use selector. With use query and use form. Yeah, just using hooks. So use loading is use selector. Select is loading. That's an attempt. Select errors. There you go. All right. So both of those from the request slice. Oh yeah, React query and React forms. Yeah, there's a thing I'm using in here because I'm using tRPC for the requests. Some of the places where I'm just pulling information from the backend where there's no like persistent state, I am using I think something that is meant to resemble React query, if I'm not mistaken. Where would I find one of those examples? Maybe not here. So here we go. So like here I'm trying to, let's make it a little bit more space. Here we go. So in this edit consumption component, I just want this consumption. So I'm using this tRPC get consumption procedure, and I'm calling use query on it, and passing in kind of this ID of the consumption. I'm doing air quotes that you can't see. That we're dealing with, and so that was kind of a decision I made at one point, was that I'm gonna use Redux, but I'm not going to try to like route every single network request through that. If it's not something that has to do with like, if it's not stateful, if it's just like pulling information from the back end, I'm going to use, I'm not going to go through Redux, with the thought being that for offline support, I would just use thingy. I can't think of the word right now. Service worker caching. Yeah, seems similar. Don't have a replacement for the form stuff. No, I'm just kind of doing that by hand. There's a thing that I have used most of the front end stuff I do these days, not on stream, ends up being through this library called React Admin. And it uses, well, it used to use React Final Form. I think they switched to something else relatively recently. Maybe? Don't quote me on that. But, yeah, so a bit higher level, a bit more abstract, and things taken care of. But that was kind of, so at one point I didn't have Material UI as a library in this. I was doing just all handwritten CSS and just hand rolling everything, because why not? It's an opportunity to try something that's not something that I've really done in app development in a number of years. And that was fun for a while, but it started to get repetitive, and I started to feel like there are better, I wanted to kind of move this along a little bit. Yeah, the libraries are quite good. Yeah. Yeah, everything's got a learning curve of some kind. Hold on one second. I gotta take off this hoodie, so I'm gonna mute. It's starting to get a little warm here. All right. Yeah, build it yourself, no learning curve as you're creating it from scratch, but it won't be as well made. Well, it depends on how much time you're wanting to sink into it, right? But it would be a lot of time, right, to kind of measure up to the quality of something that's had hundreds of people, thousands of hours spent into it, and I don't have that kind of time. And it's not really, it's an area that I explored a little bit, and I was like, oh, that's fun, but moving on. Yeah, I wonder at what point you want to create your use forms or whatever. I don't know. I think that might be like, if this app at this point I feel is probably not going to be complex enough where I would even bother, where it's not going to bother me. Just kind of like, let's see. I guess the big form is in the settings page. One version of that component. Hey, look, a bunch of CSS. Where, so we have sections. How does this work again? Children, settings layout, settings nav. That's that. Settings layout. So it's not in here. I really should name these different, like, I shouldn't have 6 files all named settings something. Oh, this one doesn't count, but you get the point. That's probably a mistake. But here we go. So we just have a bunch of typography, input, and just have, you know, some functions that are providing props. This is kind of the as far as that's gone. And this settings page is kind of the only place where there's a lot of form stuff going on. This thing. So I don't know if we'll ever get to the point where we want to build something more abstract for that. Okay. Yeah. The helper function. Yeah. Except it's well, it's not a hook. Could do more, but it was good enough. Yeah. Yeah. Was it this file, or was it a different file? If I just keep going back, yeah. Connect component. This thing. Yeah, I get some logic in here. Mostly doing wiring to some of this could be cleaned up a little bit, but this has survived the conversion from that old state solution to the new one. Is that what happened here? Yeah, because we're using dispatch. Yeah, so this is now using Redux. I think maybe that was one of the very first streams was converting that. This has been so long ago. Okay, so we have the selector, we have the data. We're not getting any type errors. This might actually work. Let's see. If we were to go... Browser's frozen? Probably should look into that. That's not a good sign. But, okay. So what we could probably do... Oh, didn't like that. Oh, it's the thing I always forget to do when I add a new slice, is that the slice has to be added to configure store. every time I forget that. Oh. That's what I get for blindly accepting suggestions. And I didn't have a default export. What did I forget? Oh yeah, the usual things here. Requests slice. There we go. Forgot a couple things. I don't like how this has decided it's not going to respond to me anymore. What's up with that? Maybe it's the fact that I have like 100 tabs open across like 5 different desktops. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's Firefox. Okay, so just the usual something to look at later. And then what I wanted to do is I wanted to go to the network tab, and we can add some throttling. Something flashed for a minute. Did it? Let's go 2G settings. I guess we're not refreshing here. Let's go back to the diary. There we go. We have a little loading indicator. Let's go more throttling. I assume this is like, I don't know what GPRS is, but presumably it's slower. That didn't work. So we go back to here. We have a little loading indicator. It's just a very fast request. Not a lot of data, so the throttling doesn't do a ton. I wonder if there's a way. Oh, here we go. If we hover over it, we can see stats. I wonder if there's a way to edit this to have it even worse throttling for testing purposes. Maybe it's in this cog. Nope. Wow. Okay. Regardless, we can see the loading indicator. Is there a way to force an error? Yeah, I suppose so. I could. I think if I stop the server, though, that's just going to. Let's try it. May just give us a different kind of error. Yeah. One that doesn't help us that. Yeah, okay. Dev server back up. We can. So what are we hitting when we go to the diary page? We can probably just add a throw to one of our tRPC procedures. Diary list consumptions by meal, I think, is the operation, the procedure that's being called. So we could probably just fake an error here. Oh, waiting. Are you going to load? Aha, all right. Brilliant. A wonderful error message. Very user friendly. Okay, so has nothing to do with the the Redux conversion at all, but I got to do something about the error. Um, Interesting. So let's. I mean, we're saying that this errors that this component is getting is an array that has a message. So let's just do e.message to get the message out, and we'll join it with spaces. Is weird. This whole thing is weird. I should really. I don't want to have like a list here. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Hey, look, that's better. But we got it twice because of React and strict mode. And yeah, so that's normalish. Okay, cool. So now we can see that our error and loading snack bars do appear. And they're getting the data from Redux, from our slice. Now, a thing that I don't know if I'll have a handy way of testing, but or at least testing that it fully behaves the way I expected. But a thing that I want to address here is that if we have two requests, say request A and request B, both kick off. Like we're hitting a page and it's loading this thing and it's loading that thing. And so both of those requests are pending. And then say request A gets fulfilled, but request B hasn't been yet. We don't want is loading to be set to false. Or rather, in the front end, we want to show the progress indicator while any request is still pending. So things we could do here. I think I said before a stack, but honestly what would probably be simpler is just a counter. Because we don't need to keep track of what the requests were or any of those details. We just need to have a count. As long as we can know that a request was fulfilled or rejected, so we can decrement. And I believe it should be the case that requests will either be fulfilled or rejected, not both, not neither. So that should be safe to do. So we could just have pending requests here, start at 0, and we'll change the interface here. So this is pending requests number, and then state.pending requests. Yep. And then Copilot does the rest. And then we just need to change our selector to translate pending requests into a Boolean, right? So if there are any pending requests, then we are loading. And then that's that conversion. All right, so now, are we still throttled? No, that went away when we did things. So I think navigating here. Oh, there it went. Okay. So it does load. If we go to settings, I think settings doesn't have a loading indicator because we're just pulling the data from the back end from this perspective. Do I have a typo? Dairy? Yeah, they're pretty close, right? Just vowel order. Okay. Yeah, just have a diary full of dairy. Yes. Dairy is good. All right, so I think this is it for this component. On to the next. That was probably, I don't know, we'll see. But that was kind of more interesting than I was thinking it was going to be. All right, so we want to deal with quick add next. So quick add has a bunch of things in here. What are we trying to do? So the quick add page looks like this, assuming it loads. So a simple form where you just plug in numbers and you can add, right? So very bare bones. This could be nicer. It could be, maybe it could have been a modal on the previous page. It could be a lot of things, but it is what it is. So what do we have going on here? So this is kind of just like a top level page. We have a router. Hey, Mono. Smashing it. Making progress. Have a to-do list now of things, and we just knocked out one of our items. Thanks for dropping by. I know it's quite early, late where you are. One of those. Yeah. All right, so we have a form. It's got some inputs, some of our custom united inputs. Got a button group and some buttons. Oh, you're taking Mondays off? Nice. Yeah, I'm saving up all my time off for the holidays in the year. I like taking a nice block of time off, which I imagine come into November, there's going to be a lot more streaming because of that. You also took tomorrow off for your birthday. Well, happy birthday. All right. So we have a bunch of use states where we're keeping track of kind of what's going on in the form, and then presumably there's something here. Yeah. So we're running this action, which is connected to the old RxJS store, that then ultimately runs some kind of tRPC procedure. Do we did a four-day week for a few months a few years ago? Not too much leave and loved it. Yeah, nice. Yeah. A couple of years ago, I had something similar where I had a bunch of time that I needed to spend. That I was taking every Friday off for a couple months. It was nice. So the question is, do we even convert this to Redux? Or, I mean, we could just keep the use states here and just call the tRPC procedure to send the request. I think, though, that kind of violates kind of the intent. So that's a request that is going to change state. And so that's something we want to have go through Redux as an action, so that when we have offline mode, that action can be queued and then synced to the server later. So I think that's something we have to convert this into an action, a Redux action that is dispatched. I don't know. I mean, we could could move the stuff into the Redux store as well. To do that, I don't know that we need to, though, versus having local state in the component. At some point, that decision might need to be changed if the context in which we're using this quick add component changes. But I think for now, well, there are a couple things. So I think, one, we can get rid of this because we can get the user settings from Redux, from selector. What are we using this router for? Okay, so after we send the action, we send the user back. Okay. Now that's something I don't know about, right? So if we, so if we're dispatching an action, you spent a long time trying to read united input. Yeah, is it a word? United? Is united a word? Yeah. So in other words, an input that has some kind of associated unit with it, which I thought would be a helpful concept for something where we're inputting like protein in either grams or ounces, carbs and fats and kilocalories. Untitled input. Nice. Yeah, I can see that. It's pretty close. So I think this is problematic anyway, right? So dispatching this action, however it happens, I don't think we want to send the user on until like this completes. Is it a good practice to like can you interact with the router inside of a thunk though? Right? Because if we're going to dispatch this action, there's going to be a thunk that actually handles that. To make the request, can we interact with the router from Redux to send the user on to somewhere else? Or how do we do that is a question. Let me just, all right. That's habit to do 2 stars first, but I didn't want all that extra stuff. So things to do in this file. That's a nice try. So decide if we want to keep the local state or use the store. Keeps on wanting us to add validation. We're not doing that. Okay, switch to getting user settings from the store. Yep. Nope, no validation. Stop it, Copilot. And then figure out how to not handle errors, but to route the user back to the diary page after adding the after the thunk is done. Yes. What else do we need to do here? Like, I think this router push is fine here because we're just essentially abandoning all the state. We're just like, get me out of here at that point, at least in the context that we're using this component right now. Again, everything is subject to change should we need this component in some other context doing something else. So we have value and on change here. That's fine. We have the button group. When we so the add button is just of type submit, so that triggers our on submit on the form. And then this will be changed to dispatch. So probably should change form to dispatch Redux action, thunk, ultimately. Implement the thunk for adding the quick consumption, sure. Yeah, I think if we do keep the local state, then we don't need to add a slice, right? And then maybe we can put this thunk inside of the diary slice alongside those other things, because that's where we're kind of dealing with. Let's see, diary slice. We have some thunks here already doing stuff, adding and moving and deleting consumptions. Also, I'm feeling like we're at the point where we should probably make a helper function to do this logic. Because there are a lot of places, well, there's definitely some places where we're doing more, but like the loading and the error and stuff could be reusable logic. So something to continue thinking about. Okay, so let's say we have that thunk implemented. Somewhere we need to have something that's going to yeah, so I think we need to figure that the routing part of that as we implement the thunk. Maybe we can look at documentation. It was pretty successful the last time. Trying to figure out how to do the loading and error. Although then Copilot kind of did most of the work for us anyway. So route. Nope. Routing. Nope. Okay. Redux Toolkit. Thunk. Resolve. Router. Router redirect and create async thunk is a question. Dispatch redirect to. Oh yeah, that looks familiar. A redirect action? Is that a thing? Redirect from some writing library. Dispatch. Wait, how are you? Redux. Redirect action. Yes. Don't do stateful things outside of the context of the actual store state inside of your reducer. Yes. Yeah. Okay, so how are we? Where's this use router coming from? Oh, it's coming from next. Right. We're Next.js is happening also behind the scenes. That was it's kind of a mixed bag. I'm not super excited about it because we're not leveraging a lot of the capabilities there. But that was something that I haven't also bothered trying to move away from. It's maybe not. I feel like it's maybe not a great fit for something that's trying to be like having an offline mode and those sorts of things in a web app. So maybe this tells us. Let's see, Redux Toolkit redirect Next.js. Asked 3 years ago. Okay. That's an interesting idea. Would that work? Can you await the dispatch of a thunk in that way? Async await on thunk dispatch using Redux Toolkit? Question mark. I think this should work. Thunks return promises. That's true. You know what? Instead of fiddling with this and thinking about this and researching this, we could actually just try it. Let's make the thunk. And yeah, let's make the thunk. So we want to do adequate consumption. So where shall we put that? Let's put that after the existing one. We'll make a export const add quick consumption. Sure. Is that the name of the procedure? I guess we're going to find out here in a minute. We want to await, and then do we need to refresh that? No. So we don't need that second argument there. And apparently that is a thing. Yep. Add quick consumption in server procedures diary. Yes. Okay. So that was easy. So things I've been thinking about as I've been like Googling around this, how to do the routing thing. One, I'm awaiting the mutate here. Could I simply call, I could import the router, use route. No, I couldn't do that. That's a hook. I'm not going to be able to use a hook from this. So that was the first thing I was thinking about, but no, that would be awkward, and I'd probably have to figure out like how is this implemented, and can I access that without the hook and do those sorts of things. Alternatively, if I were to, let's say, console.log in add quick consumption, so we can just see it happening, and then okay, that's fine. And then in here, I'm going to comment this out. And what we're going to do is we're going to try to await dispatch of adequate consumption. Yeah, something like that, maybe. Of course, this needs to be async now. And we actually need dispatch. There it is. And let's go ahead and remove our old imports to kind of force us to do the rest of the conversion. And then this stuff is going to go away. What we're going to do is we're going to say use selector. All right. This should just be user settings. There should be a selector in store slices to give us user settings. Select settings. There it is. And that line can go away. Then add quick consumption status is so what is the type of this looking like right now? We don't know. There. Oh, I see. Okay, so let's just fake this for a minute. Wait, we're still importing stuff. Okay, that's fine. That'll eventually go away. We're gonna get rid of the use effect because we don't need that anymore. So we don't need to worry about checking the status of user settings. Loading. What about this add error? Is possibly null. Correct. Does not exist on never. Indeed. Can we just do that? It's possibly null. Yes, indeed. All right. Okay, that's silenced it anyway. That's what I'm going for. We can come back and deal with this because this is... We're going to want to know what's happened. And so probably we're going to have to add something to our diary slice to give us that status information. Although maybe, I don't know, we'll see. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Let's go ahead and add that import. And it's complaining because, right. This is a thunk, and we've had some issues with the type. Essentially, dispatch not wanting to accept our thunks, and there's probably an easy solution to dealing with that, and it's not good to use any. It's like defeating the whole purpose of using TypeScript, in my opinion. Number or null is not assignable to type number. Well, this should never be null when we get to here, because reasons. Yes. I know. Not valid syntax. There. Okay, so that made that happy. So, okay, let's see how this is gonna work. Before dispatch. And then, I mean, what I'm assuming is going to happen, what I think is reasonable to assume is going to happen, is we'll see before dispatch, we'll see the console log from our thunk. That's not actually doing, like we've commented out the tRPC request, but we'll see in add consumption. Then we'll see after dispatch, and then we'll get redirected back to the diary, right? Okay, so let me fix the rest of these errors. So all of these places where we're using user settings request.data should now be just user settings.food unit. And that was still more to do, but at least that should allow us to see what happens. So we put 100 kilocalories in there. Let's go to the console and click add. So we see before dispatch, in add quick consumption, after dispatch, and the redirect did happen. Am I still throttling? Yes. Let's turn that throttling off. It's like, why is it taking so long? Okay, so that seemed to have worked. Let's test something else. So if we go back to May the 1st and we click quick add, let's add 150 kilocalories to whatever meal that was. Oh, complaining about, because we navigated away. So we went back to the 1st, but our item isn't there. Oh, right, because the procedure is commented out. Of course it's not there. We're not actually doing anything. But it seems like this does work. We can just await the thunk to be resolved or rejected through dispatch, and then redirect afterwards, which is the thing that we wanted to figure out how to do. So this we can uncomment. And seems like we don't need this information anymore. We don't need these console logs. So this all seems to work. I don't know that I've still decided. We could still move this information to Redux. I just into a slice into the store somewhere. I don't have a rationale for doing that yet. So TBD. Switch to getting user settings from the store, did that. Implement the thunk for adding the quick consumption, did that. Figure out how to route the user back, did that. So I think this should now work. Let's go to a different day, and we'll try to quick add to lunch. 501 kilocalories with no macro information. And that does immediately show up because we're doing the redirect. So we're switching to a different page. Unlike in the other situation where we're using like the add to, and we were using this modal and doing things kind of on the page, we needed to trigger something that would refresh the state. With quick add, because we're going to a different page and redirecting back, we don't need to do that. This error is probably about blur height. I might do something about that at some point. Not today. Change form to dispatch action. We did that. So, and then figure out how to get information about status of the request. Sure. Yeah. And display it. Is the other thing that we need to figure out how to do. So it's been coming up on, well, not quite, but pretty close to halfway through the stream. So I think this is a good point for me to take a little break, stretch the legs, and refill my water and all that sort of stuff. And in just a few minutes, I'll be coming back and figuring out how to do this, and then probably moving on to the next thing in the to-do list. So, be back in just a few minutes. Okay, so a couple of to-dos left for the quick add feature. I think the first one won't really be able to really decide on until we address everything else. So figure out how to get information about the status of the request and display it. So a... How would we want to do this? Do we need to do this? Probably. Right, so I'm thinking about this, right? So let me... so if we go back to quick add, right? So if we get some kind of error, we are going to get a toast about it, right? Because our general error handling thing that we just implemented 20 minutes ago or whatever is going to make a toast appear, or a snack bar, whatever it's called. Why is that? Anyway, doesn't matter. Make a thing appear here that's going to show us that, oh, there was an error. And I guess that's fine. I think in other circumstances, I might want to provide feedback closer to the form. I don't know in this case, though, because nothing in the error that we're going to get back is going to tell us, at least the way it is right now, is going to tell us, oh, you need to do something with this field or this field. Like, there's not going to be any, like, field level information in the error. So I guess the most important thing is that we don't navigate away if there's an error. So what happens right now if in add quick consumption we throw an error? Here we go. So if we just, at the very top, throw an error, we'll put in one, add, it does navigate away. I think if we could just prevent that from happening, then we don't really need to do anything else. Can we do that by... So, like, we're awaiting dispatch here. So this is going to wait. Obviously, this is presumably waiting for the thing to resolve or reject. But it is... Wait, hold on. So it's not... Like, dispatch isn't giving us back the promise, though, from the thunk. Because if it was, this would be throwing here. And so we would never reach router.push. So whatever this promise we get back from dispatch is must just be, okay, job done. It just always resolves and never rejects. Must be what's happening, because this router.push did get executed when we awaited this promise. Huh. Do we... So we could just say, okay, well, there was an error, and we just went back to this page. It's kind of annoying, because I wanted to quick add that. Maybe I want to try again. What is this? Does not support quick add entries yet? How did I get to that? That was strange. Oh. Edit consumption? Huh. That was strange. Also, there's no way to get rid of the... no way to get rid of the snack bar. That should go on the backlog as a thing too. Oh yeah, I have it right here. Make toast eventually go away and be dismissible. So we'll it's captured. It'll get addressed at some point before this thing is actually on the internet for people to use. Because I'm not so cruel. All right, so so on the one hand, this feels like maybe this would be annoying to have to, I try to quick add, and then an error happens, and oh, the things I just entered just went away. They're gone, right? So now, if I want to quick add, it's gone. I'll have to re-enter the stuff. Maybe I just want to click add again. Maybe I don't want to navigate away. But how? Right, so we're waiting this. And we must be, the promise must be rejecting for our error handling to get triggered in the first place. So, simplest thing that occurs to me right now would be simply to add something to the diary state that would be okay, I mean, we could add something to the state, either reuse some existing state or add something to the state for error information, but that still doesn't solve the issue of we're going to navigate away. So to address the navigation issue, how are we going to do that? Okay, so let's take a look at this push method. So this is coming from Next's router. Okay. Yeah, which we get with useRouter. Next.js Redux router. Yeah. How to do routing. Well, that's with Redux Saga, but might be applicable. Is using Redux with Next.js standard pattern? Maybe. Yep. Okay. Apparently I've been here before. Everybody knows Redux. I don't know if that's strictly true, but it's been around for a while, hasn't it? Create a slice. Is there actually something about routing in here? Nope. Oh yeah, here's the docs on Next.js. You have no idea about Redux? Yeah, it's it's a web dev thing. It's a I mean, technically has nothing to do with React, right? But React and Redux have gone in hand for basically since I've started using React, which was a number of years ago. But then I've not really done a lot of lower level, I guess, front end stuff in quite a while. Mostly dealing with high level libraries. What am I looking for? Injecting the router. You can use router or with router. So you use it at work, and you're currently maintaining the web code base. How it works, I should probably learn that. Yeah, I mean it's conceptually, I think, very simple. There's so the thing that I have been learning as part of this project is the Redux Toolkit, which is a bunch of things that are supposed to cut down on boilerplate. And I think that's true. Although I've been sort of actively doing things in a kind of I've been just kind of like these selectors I've been creating. I've been creating a lot of these maybe more than I need to, but conceptually, it's if you're familiar with like map reduce or using a reducer, that's kind of the core idea in Redux is that you have application state expressed as functions that take some action in the current state and make a new state from that, and then do so that's a pure function, and then you inject that state in. Oh, your web dev left. Haven't hired another one yet. Yeah. New features contractor. Yep. Okay, so there's use router. I think we were trying to look for it with router. Okay, with router is a wrapper. Okay, what if I'm not in a component and I want to do routing? Like, I feel like I've searched this maybe a couple times now, but Next.js Redux Thunk route routing. Redux binding for Next.js router compatible with Next.js. Dispatch router methods using Redux actions. I'm not super thrilled about adding a library right now. Got a lot of those already. And even less thrilled about the idea of re-implementing stuff to do that. Look, there's all these files. What is the gist of what this library is doing? So we have a router producer. If we have location change, we're merging state with action payload. Okay. So actions. Oh, there's probably middleware. Yes. So we have create router middleware. And then we are saying if we have a router, the type is not location change. On location change, location from URL. Call router method. Window history. Interesting. Okay. What if, for now, it's not solve this problem. Instead, we are going to get rid of all this, and we're going to say if there's an error when the user lands on the targeted page, then they'll see the I keep on wanting to say toast, but the snack bar indicating what the error was. And that will be not as friendly as we could be, but that means we don't have to figure out how to do this right now. I think maybe I'll add something to the backlog though, to add to do's is issue here. Add story interaction test. Yeah. Refactor X state input. I don't know if we need to do that anymore. I guess we don't need to do that anymore because we're not using. We got rid of using X state, right? Right. Food search input. Yeah, I don't think so. Bonus. Goodbye tasks. All right, so let's add something to don't navigate away from quick add form if there is an error. Okay. So we'll plan for now for that to be in kind of the 1.0 version to address that by then. All right, so then we can remove some imports that we don't need anymore. And close down some files that were done. Don't want to close that. And done with that. The to-do list shrinks. All right, so next file. What do we have going on here? So this is the top level entry point to the diary. So like if you're logged in and you go to this diary nav item, let me just refresh to so you stop seeing that error. So if you go to like /diary basically, then this Typescript file is that page. So we're getting the current day, we are getting the router, we're using our use store and use observable, we're getting the user, so we're just getting user information. Now, do we have that in the store already? All right, so like if we look at state, we have settings. Could we just read the name from the settings? That's what we're after, right? In fact, do we have... Yeah, we have a select name. So this could be... So we can get rid of this, because I think we... So we're getting user, but we're only using the user to get the name to display here. So all of this goes away. And then we say const name equals use selector, select name. And we just have to add those imports. It is use selector, right? Here, yeah. I don't know why the thing didn't suggest that, but there we go. And then we just say name. There we go. Refresh to make sure that's actually working. Diary for loading, and then says Sabin. Interesting. Why does it do that? Huh. Why does it say loading there? Where's that coming from? So more imports we don't need. Wait, what? Diary index.tsx, diary page, server-side props, diary for... Oh. Right. So this is not for the title here. This is for the actual like HTML title. So it temporarily says diary for undefined. Hold on. So let's do this. So if we have the name, this is going to be a little ugly. For name, otherwise empty string, space. There we go. All right. And then what are we doing over here? We are, but here we're getting the username, so the name from get user profile, just to get the username. Instead, probably just also change this to use selector. Name or no name. Loading. And then there we go. One less request to the backend, and we can get rid of another import we don't need. All right, was that it in this file? I think so. Well, that was easy. Is it going to be the same thing for these other ones? And if so, is there an opportunity to reduce some duplication? Like if we're doing the same thing in all of these, why do they exist? Well, I mean, I know why they exist in one regard, which is that for routing for Next.js. So what's the difference here between this one and this one? So get server-side props is one difference. And then, so we get day from the props. And then we are getting user profile. We're using this metadata. One of the things that's different is whether or not the third one, the one that's next in our to-do list, is for other users, looking at other users' diaries. And that one editable is set to false. So I wonder if we can make this basically be the same, like the same component with just different get server-side props exported. Right, so if we did so if we did this, except we did date, and date will just be this bit of code here. And then, yeah, that's good. And then this bit of code to get the date from the props can go here. Of course, that means we need props. There we go. So then we have something that is most of the way there. I think the other thing we could pass in from get server-side props, just to save us a few lines of code, is we can just pass editable from here. Editable, and this is just props.editable, and in fact, then we can save ourselves another line and just say day is props.date. Same thing here. Okay. And so then in these other pages, we don't need to write this code over again. Let's look at the third one, just to kind of contrast and make sure that we're not missing something that we need here. So in this third one, we are getting information about the user that's indicated from the URL, from the user's log, and we're pulling that information in, and we're passing that information as props here. And so that does mean the code is a bit different. So here we need to actually request. Wait. Oh, yeah. So we're getting this user's ID, or the profile from that user ID. And then we're displaying that. So this one is a bit different. Probably not worthwhile. Okay, well, anyway, so we will do this. We can get rid of all this extra code here. And we can import diary page from pages diary index.tsx. So is it index? Reuse. A little bit. And, if I would have maybe looked at this third one, I don't know if I would have bothered doing that just to be able to do this one import and re-export for this component, but it's okay. And maybe at some point I'll come back and make a more generic thing for the third one, but yeah. So now for this, what we're going to do is we're going to, so that takes care of that one. And then we just have this one, right? Because there's basically nothing going on in here other than us providing the server-side props. And then in here, we're getting the information from the settings, because the purpose of this page is to show, and the one I just closed, is to show the diary for the current user. And then this page is for looking at a specific day's diary for a different user. So for this, we can't just look in the store for the settings. We need to instead look up that user. Do we though? We're already getting the user record here. Why don't we can't we just ask for their name? And then we can include that name here. And then we don't have to make any kind of backend request at all. And then all of this goes away. Target username. And then that goes there. Oh, and we have to tell it that, yeah, that's something we'll be getting from props. And then this becomes a lot simpler. A bit different than what we've been doing other places where we're, putting requests together in the front end to send to the back end. Here we are generating this page on the back end. or at least this part of it. And of course, the diary component itself then is doing, is going to be pulling information for that user. What was that error about? It went away. It was probably something from as we were changing pages. I haven't built this friends page. Nope, doesn't exist. No friends. So I don't have a good way of like testing that right now, but I'll just I'll assume that it works, and future me can deal with it later. All right, so that's that done. All right. Let's take a look at the next one. So now we have the edit consumption page. And it's just a wrapper around our consumption components. And then we give it a bunch of data. Does this... So this does import useStore for actions. Right. So the remaining thing that this component uses from our old store is this update consumption action, which presumably calls a tRPC thing. So we're going to need to hook that up to a thunk and do some stuff. But what does this do right now? Right, so update consumption. Let's go find that. So here's the procedure, or that's where we're importing and re-exporting the procedure. Here is the procedure. So we have a food ID, a meal ID, serving information. I feel like we changed this recently. Maybe not. I think we looked at this recently for some kind of bug fix. Something to do with custom container sizes. Right, so ultimately what this is trying to do, though, is it's updating an existing consumption record. Maybe you're changing the number of servings or what kind of serving size you used for that number of servings, or both. Okay, so that's that. And then we have an action. So here's the here's our actions.ts that defines all of this type for the actions that flow into our RxJS observable for the thing that we're getting rid of. And so this is defining kind of the shape of that action. And then here is the actual action function that then puts this information into this events observable subject. And then in events, we actually handle that. So we have a function that builds out this handle update consumption, which unsurprisingly makes a tRPC mutation call. Is that all we do with this? It's all right here, isn't it? And then we export it there. We do that there. We do that there. Seems pretty straightforward. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of other... So kind of what I was looking for there is because the type is also update consumption, I was thinking there might be other places in events.ts or this other file, bus.ts, where we are like doing additional things when certain things happen. And this is all going away because it ended up being more hassle than it was worth. We'll see if I'll end up saying the same thing about Redux in a month or something, but whatever. Trying new things, or old things, or combinations of things. Here's our page again. So what's interesting here is that I guess edit consumption. So how do we get to there? So let's go to a day where we have a consumption. maybe last week. There's a bunch of things. Why are these not clickable? These should be clickable. Did I break something? Diary index or date? Oh yes, so editable has to still be true here. There we go. Because this is the diary date page. So this is like for my own diary on this given date. So I do want those things to be editable. So if we, okay, so ... gets us to this move dialog. If we click the item though, this gets us to this page, which allows us to edit some things. We can't change what meal it's a part of here, which maybe we should be able to. I don't know. But we can change the number of servings and what kind of serving size we're using. If we entered something a mistake, or we, we had a little bit more after we added it to our diary, and then we can click done. And when we click done, it just does an update. It doesn't take us anywhere else. Maybe it should show some kind of success and do those sorts of things, but at least for right now it's not doing that. And one thing that I think is pretty important is not to try to implement new features while we're doing this refactoring kind of work. Although there's a whole other topic about what is refactoring and what is not, and do you have tests, and we mostly don't have tests in this code base except for some interaction tests in Storybook. But all of that aside, back to edit consumption, where I think we just need to add a thunk to our diary slice. We have, because we have add quick, move, and delete. And we have fetch diary and refresh diary. If we add one to updated consumption, is that what it's called? Update consumption? I think that's consistently what it's called. So let's add a new one. Nope. That is a try. Update consumption. And then, so I added, what did I add here? I added quick consumption, or I added add quick consumption, but I didn't hook it up into kind of the diary status. Like, are we loading? Is there error? And those sorts of things. And maybe I'm going to move away from that. Now that we have kind of this generic request thing that is showing a status, I don't know if we need that inside of the diary slice. But that's a decision that could be made at some point. And for now, though, I think all we really need to do is we just need to dispatch update consumption. And let's see, in this form, is that, okay, I need to, one, let's see, we need to almost certainly do that. And then we need to get rid of this use store, and we can say const dispatch equals use dispatch. And then we can get rid of use store. And it isn't like this. It says that it's not assignable to parameter of type procedure call options. ID doesn't exist there. Interesting. So like if you look at this, if we go back to diary.ts, so router input diary update consumption is what the payload should look like. And it has ID, serving size, meal ID, food ID, servings, and serving ID. So what is the problem? Did we, yeah, that's the problem. We imported it from the wrong place. Why ducks? Okay, so we want to import this from store slices diary. And what's it complaining about? Argument for action was not provided. Am I doing something wrong here? Update consumption. Update consumption. Oh, right. It's not the default export, so why am I treating it like that? Okay, so there we go. And so that should allow us to update the consumption, aka the thing that we ate. Let's say we only had like 10 grams of this, 32 kilocalories. And if we click done, feels kind of weird. Did it work? I don't know, but we can click cancel. That just takes us back. 10 grams. Is that, why does it say 325 kilocalories though? Seems kind of odd. $32. Interesting. Why 325? Let's take a look at the consumptions. So if we sort by updated on, so we have this food ID, servings 10, container size ID 1, container sizes, size 1, label 1 gram, food consumptions ID, food ID. Huh. So I think size is supposed to be size in grams or milliliters if it's a liquid. And then the ID, it corresponds to the container size ID here. So why is the front end saying that, oh, that was, why is it treating it as if it's the other container size? I will have to come back and look at that later. Bug in kcal display in diary page. All right. Well, regardless, it did update it. So if we click it again, and we change this back to 1 and change it back to 1 serving. What if we change it to... Do we... Okay, we can do decimals. It's just kind of janky. Nope, we can't do that. That is also an issue. We should definitely have the ability to enter in half of a serving. What is the actual error that we're getting back? An unexpected error occurred. Very helpful. We get a traceback that's embedded inside of that. Maybe if we just look at the terminal, it'll be faster. Let me get rid of this. Oh my. Yeah, that makes sense. I think the the data model does not support decimals for servings. Let's look at that. Servings. Yeah, it's just the integer. probably should not be an integer. Oh my. Okay, so another thing to put on the backlog. Allow non-integer amounts in servings in consumption model. Get that pretty high in the backlog. I think that's pretty important to support. Okay, well, I guess we'll be able to see that there's a difference here because before it was 325 for some reason, and now it should go back to 320. But it still says 325. That's interesting. There is a discrepancy here. Part of the discrepancy may be in the display saying 320. Right, so this, I think there might be some rounding going on or something. I don't know, but there's definitely at least two issues there. One, 320 versus 325, and the other being that if we change this to be in units of grams, and we say we have 10 grams of it, it should be a tenth of this amount. Also, this is wrong. That's interesting. That should be easier to fix though. So if we go to consumption and we look at the wait, no. So it's going from the diary. What is that called? Diary meal gets us closer. Here we go. Here's the table where we have calories, protein, carbs, and fat. And I'm guessing no. Well, at least this is ordered correctly. Total calories, total protein, carbohydrates, and fat. Units and value. That's the footer, though. All right, so that's adding those up. And then in the table row, where's the body? Okay, here we go. So meal entries map. So we have a diary meal entry component. And it has a table row. And presumably these are just not in the same order, right? Protein, fat, and carb. Protein, carb, and fat. Whoops. Protein, carb, and fat. In fact, I feel like I had something on the backlog about ensuring that we have consistent ordering for the macros. Or maybe I thought I had already done that, and so check that off as done. Yeah, well, regardless. Keep an eye out for that. There we go. Because, yeah, these ginger cubes don't have any fat. They're just all carbs. Anyway. Okay, so that was edit consumption. And we are no longer using the old store, so we can get rid of that. And we're so close to actually being done with this conversion. I think we could actually wrap this up today. And then what will we do next? Well, it's not like there's a few things left. There's quite a number of things and more. So we could definitely start looking at some of these other things. I'm not going to tackle the offline stuff right now. I wanted to make this conversion to Redux now before more time is spent kind of investing in that other approach. But the actual offline capability is less important to me than some of these other things. So this item will probably go back in the backlog for later. maybe not even for V1. I just didn't want to start tackling any of these other things and investing in that other solution at this point. And so that's why we've been working on this for the last month and a half, is to take that get that taken care of, so we have a solid foundation to then proceed with these other things. So like error boundaries is something we can look at, adding more loading skeletons, because the thing I know I hate, I'm comfortable using that word in this context, is navigating around in a UI and having it jump around. You load a page and you're like, okay, then click on a thing, and then the thing moves and something else is there, and it's frustration. Anyway, so that's what that's about. Making toast go away and be dismissible. Some of these bugs that we just identified are all things that will be kind of next up for our Sunday coding streams. Okay, so with that being said, let's wrap up changes here. So there's not a ton here that needs to be changed, other than just not including the store context. This component needs to have, we can just have a fragment there so that we have something here, and then we can just get rid of use create store and get rid of this import. Let me copy this so we can also search for any other uses of that. So that's layout. That's all we needed to change there, was just to not set up the context. And then mock.tsx. This is where we are wrapping. This is our mock store that we're using for things. I think we can just delete this. Yeah, GitHub projects for tracking. Yeah. How do I find it? Yeah, I think there are parallels to Trello. I've used Trello before. I still have some things that, like house project things that I'm just ignoring that are in Trello. But it's comparable. I don't think I really have a strong opinion about it. At the moment, it's nice that you can then take so you can see these that have little green marks. So these are linked to either like a pull request or issue as well. And then they can stay in sync. And so that's nice. Tighter integration if you're working at a GitHub anyway. The big thing that I use elsewhere is Jira, which I have sunk a lot of time into knowing the ins and outs of. And its integration is not as tight. You've been stuck using Trello for all, but just realizing you're doing a monorepo and you use issues and pull requests a lot. Yeah, maybe that makes sense. I've not really tried to have like Trello sync to GitHub, so I can't really speak to that. But it's been okay so far. Ooh, let's learn Jira. No. So Jira is very configurable, and you can definitely do things that are unwise. Can you get your velocity out of GitHub projects? I don't know. I've not really tried to do any kind of like agile Scrum. Yeah, you're not being serious. I'm gonna give you a serious answer though. I've not tried to do that at a GitHub projects. I don't know if you were trying to like do Scrum, which I am a certified Scrum Master for the little that means. I've not tried to do that out of the GitHub projects. Actually, we did. There was a startup I worked at where we were using it, or a past incarnation. Unfortunately, velocity was in the original. I mean, it is something that is subject to a lot of abuse. I like to say that story points are, they remind me of whose line is it anyway? In that it's made up, and the points don't matter. They matter, but just for like forecasting purposes and kind of like higher level planning. I think maybe a little bit too much stress and drama is put on those, but that is just my opinion in the context of some of the things that I've been involved in. You like to do a Scrum course? It is a way of doing Agile. It is one of many ways, but it is kind of a it is a template. But if you're doing Agile, then Scrum is a place to start, maybe, perhaps, and then adapt to what is appropriate for the team that you're using it on with. Or probably a better way of saying that is it's a place to start for a team to adapt to meet what their needs are. You're meant to be a tech lead, but our team is tiny. Yep. Very, very loosely. Yeah, you saw on. Yeah, I need to walk that back a little bit, because that is what happens, I think. But ultimately, and it's in like the Scrum guidebook or whatever, that the teams need to be self-directed, so that they're autonomous. And so part of that should be dictating how or the team themselves dictating to themselves how they function. It gets complicated in different circumstance by, if you're in an environment where certain things are regulated, things get more involved. Anyway, it's pretty far afield from deleting this file, which I think is what I was about to do. Tried Azure DevOps, was no good. Yeah, I've not used that. I've heard some good things, but I mean, like any tool, it's something that people can get used to, and or something that really scratches an itch for a particular use case. Okay, I think I'm just going to delete this file because I don't think it has any use anymore. Because is using the store context from index. Oh yeah, because this is inside store. Okay, so that goes away. Bye-bye. And then I can delete this to-do file. Yes, really. All right, and then small company, so everyone uses Trello. Yeah. Azure, Jira, GitHub didn't work. We just have to open visibility for the whole company. Less meetings. Yeah, if it's something where I've definitely been in that situation too, where the software engineering or the devs or the whatever label you want to put on that is embedded in a fairly small company where it's like just everyone working out of the same thing makes a lot of sense. Yeah, the situation I'm thinking of that's kind of similar to that was Jira was already set up for folks. Wait, no. So no, when I started at this company that I'm thinking of, they were using Team Foundation Server. That's right, and they were in the process of transitioning to Jira. But the whole company wasn't using Team Foundation Server. That was just the little IT / dev team that was using that. Good old TFS. All right, so we have mock store here. I am surprised Wait, hold on a second. Let me double check something. Right, this is store context provider. Store action. So this was definitely about our old store. So that was fine to delete. So I think I'm just going to remove this. And we'll just do this like this, because this was at least not totally broken. Personally use GitHub issues to link to the Trello card to track my own work. Yeah, makes it very easy to see what went on in the master PR referencing all the issues. Yeah, if you're the only one that's doing it though, that is not as helpful as it could be, right? If everyone's doing it, then it's easier to see. You hate to be in a situation where you're looking at a code change and you can't trace it. Why did this code change? What was the motivation behind it? We. Nope, I don't want to talk about works stuff from my day job in specific there. So just move on. Oh, if you worked in the same repo, it makes. Oh yeah, well that makes sense. Different repos. Okay. All right. So, are we done converting stuff? Like all of these imports are referencing. Okay, the store. Okay, that's the Redux one. That's good. That's also importing slices. I'm just looking for anything where we're importing from store, but it's not like this. This is old stuff, I believe. Store context and use create store. Is it? Data and actions and states. So yeah, that's old. Where is this defined? Okay. So we can also start deleting some of this other stuff here. So we can delete this context.tx ts because it is referencing create. And this is all the RxJS-based store. So that goes away. I think this is kind of the most exciting part, right? Where you're just like ripping stuff out you don't need anymore. Let's go get rid of that. We may like revisit the decorator here. We might want to have like this wrapped with the provider for the Redux store. But it doesn't seem to have been using it in the first place, so I guess it's fine. Although maybe the stories are just broken. Okay, so back to our search. And slices, that goes away. Import store from store. This again is the Redux provider, so that's fine. Same thing here. Yep. And then slices, and then import store from store. So this is where we're setting up the Redux provider in the actual app. And we are also kicking off a fetch settings when the component mounts. And yeah, so I think that's all of the references to the old store taken care of. So we should be able to delete all the old files from store that we don't need anymore, like context goes away. Hooks goes away. Events also goes away. Data goes away. Are you taking off? Thanks. I hope you have a good rest of your day, next day. Yeah, same time next week. Probably wrapping up here pretty soon anyway. See ya. Just deleting some files. Alright, what is this? Types.ts? I mean, obviously we're not importing from it because that would have shown up in our search, so that can go too. Maybe. I guess we'll find out shortly, and we can always pull them back if we need to. What about utils? I think utils can go away too. This is just like wrappers and helpers for things that we don't need anymore to do with RxJS. All the slices stuff we're keeping. Xstate goes. We're not using that anymore. Actions also goes. All right, so store index can't find create. Yeah, we can fix these imports. Don't need any of those. I don't need to re-export any of those things. Oh, something was using router input from types. Do we want to restore types.ts for that, or do we want to just define Oh, there should be more places using huh. Do I have another place those types can go besides in store? Why do I have a readme? Okay, cool. tRPC.ts. Just as a kind of convenient place we can import these types from that we want. Where's infer router inputs? Okay, that's coming from there. Okay, and then we can get rid of that. And this comes from types tRPC. I'm surprised we don't have a bunch of errors about that. I would think we were using like router output and router input from other places, but apparently not. Just in diary slices. Okay. And that was the last TypeScript error that our tRPC watch thing, yeah, found 0 errors. Okay. Well, I guess that's the conversion. Yeah. Does the app still load? Failed to compile. Let's refresh. Nope, Firefox doesn't want us to refresh. Let's try this. Okay, that still loads. I feel like the text of our little daily Joule thing got bigger for some reason. Settings. Still loads. That's great. We still have our little thing that highlights the section that we're in, mostly. Let's skip to it. Yeah. Back to top. Great. Tools. I never made that page, did I? Does this work? Ooh, pretty ugly. But it's there. I don't think I've showed this on stream before, but this is something that's going to go into the tools thing at some point when I make that page. Yeah, so that seems to mostly work. What about the Storybook stuff? Donut chart. Yep. Nice. Daily goals progress. Yep. Diary meal. Diary nav. Food search. Do I even have settings? Scan barcode. Probably it's just not implemented. Quick add is probably This hasn't worked for a while. Anyway, finish Redux conversation. There we go. Sync changes. So what does that look like in terms of changed lines? So previously we were at 2039 added and 757 removes. I think that should shift the bar a little bit. Yeah, so now we are net only about 40 lines added. So about equivalent in terms of like lines of code between the two implementations. All right, so I'm going to set this to auto merge once our check's complete. And I think I'm just going to leave the stream. Leave the stream. I'm going to end the stream here. And next week, back to the backlog, and we're going to work on something else. Maybe I'll think about what that is in between now and then. Maybe we'll figure it out at the beginning of the stream next time. So TBD on that. Maybe this will need some additional fixes before it merges, and we'll look at that first. So up in the air a little bit, but that'll be next week. I have other streams going on throughout the week. Check my schedule for info on that. But I will be streaming tomorrow evening doing some Minecraft. So with that, I'm going to end it here. Thanks for watching, hanging out, and the chat. And until next time, bye-bye.